He laughed as he handed me divorce papers in labor, unaware of the will that changed everything. Pathetic woman. You can't even give birth without screaming like a failure. Sign the papers now. I want nothing to do with you, or that child. Those were the hateful words he spat as he shoved divorce papers into her trembling hands while she lay in labor, fighting for her life and the life of their baby. Her pain was his entertainment. Her tears, his triumph. Her love, nothing more than a burden he was eager to discard. But fate has a way of turning cruelty into chains. That moment meant to destroy her would one day become the key to his downfall. This is the story of a woman humiliated at her weakest hour, mocked by the man she trusted most, and the shocking twist that no one, not even him, could have imagined. And today, it is being retold by me. Hello family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together, we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. Emily couldn't sleep. She lay in the cold silence of the guest room. The one Daniel said she should start sleeping in, for her comfort. But comfort was the last thing she felt. Her body ached. Her baby shifted restlessly inside her. Her eyes were swollen from crying. The image of Daniel and Vivian in each other's arms replayed in her mind like a cruel movie stuck on loop. She hadn't spoken to either of them since she saw the truth with her own eyes. She didn't know what to say. What could she say? Her heart was shattered, but her body still had to hold itself together for the child inside her. She couldn't fall apart. Not yet. The next morning, she gathered every ounce of strength she had and walked downstairs. Vivian and Daniel were in the kitchen. Vivian was sipping coffee. Daniel scrolled through his phone like nothing had happened. Emily stood in the doorway, barely able to breathe. "I saw you," she said, her voice quiet but shaking. "Last night, I saw everything. Daniel didn't even look up." Vivian turned, feigning shock. "Emily, I don't know what you think you saw, but—" "Don't!" Emily snapped. Her hands clenched at her sides. "Don't lie to me!" Vivian stood and stepped closer, voice gentle. "Emily, you're under a lot of stress. You're pregnant. Hormones can make things feel exaggerated." Emily blinked at her. "You were kissing my husband." Vivian tilted her head. "Were we? Or are you misinterpreting something out of fear?" "I heard him," Emily whispered. "He said I wasn't supposed to see it yet." Daniel finally looked up, his eyes cold and lifeless. "Well, you did," he said flatly. "So now you know." Emily's knees buckled slightly. She caught herself on the edge of the counter. "Why?" she asked, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Why would you do this to me?" Daniel smirked. "Because I could." Vivian placed a hand on Emily's arm like she was comforting her. "He doesn't want to hurt you anymore. That's why you should just sign the papers." Emily stared at her. "What papers?" Vivian gave a fake little laugh, then leaned in and whispered close to her ear. "The divorce papers. He doesn't want you anymore." That night, Judith came by. Emily was curled up on the couch, hugging a pillow like it could protect her. Judith sat across from her, legs crossed, smiling too politely. "I heard things got emotional this morning," Judith said. Emily said nothing. Judith leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Emily, you've embarrassed yourself enough." "Everyone sees it. The crying, the desperation. It's not becoming I'm his wife," Emily said, her voice breaking. Judith's smile disappeared. "Not for much longer." Emily's lip trembled. "I've loved him." "And he doesn't love you," Judith replied, sharp as a knife. "That should tell you something. If you really cared about that baby, you'd walk away before you ruin her life too." Emily's eyes widened. "How dare you?" Judith stood. "Think about what kind of mother you want to be." The one who begs and clings. Or the one who knows when she's lost. She walked out without saying goodbye. Emily barely slept. She tossed and turned in bed, clutching her belly as sharp cramps shot through her side. Her head pounded. Her chest was tight. Around 4 a.m., she gasped. Her water broke. Panic set in. She stumbled to the phone and called the driver. Within minutes, she was on the way to the hospital, alone. She cried quietly in the back seat, gripping her phone, waiting, hoping Daniel would call. He didn't. By the time she was in the hospital bed, the contractions were coming hard and fast. Her back arched in pain. Nurses rushed around her. She was drenched in sweat, shaking, alone. Then the door opened. Daniel walked in dressed in a crisp suit. Emily's eyes lit up briefly, stupidly. Daniel! Without a word, he walked to the side of her bed and dropped a thick envelope onto her chest. She looked down at it. Divorce papers. Sign them, he said, voice flat. Emily stared at him, stunned. Right now? You're already on your back, he said. Might as well get it done. Her face crumpled. Please, Daniel. Why are you doing this? His eyes narrowed. Because you disgust me, you whine, you cry, you're needy and weak, and I can't stand to look at you anymore. Tears streamed down her cheeks. A nurse stepped in, but Daniel turned and waved her off like a nuisance. He leaned in close. You can't even give birth without screaming like a failure. Just sign the damn papers. I want nothing to do with you. Or that child. Emily's hand trembled as she opened the folder. Vivian appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, smiling like she'd just won a prize. Emily looked from Daniel to Vivian. Her heart was screaming, her body tearing apart with pain, her soul already crushed. But she signed. With a shaking hand and a shattered spirit, she signed. Emily's signature was shaky, barely legible. The pen slipped from her fingers and rolled to the floor. Her hand dropped to her side, lifeless. She could barely breathe. The pain in her abdomen was getting sharper now, deeper. But it was nothing compared to what Daniel had just done. He took the signed papers without saying a word. No thank you, no goodbye, no glance at the woman carrying his child. He just turned, straightened his cufflinks, and walked out of the room. Emily's mouth parted in disbelief. He left, just like that. Vivian lingered in the doorway. She slowly stepped inside, her heels clicking like tiny hammers on cold tile. You did the right thing, she said softly, brushing imaginary lint from her designer blazer. Daniel needs peace in his life. You weren't that. Emily lay there, panting, writhing, clutching her belly. She was too weak to argue, too broken to cry anymore. Vivian looked at her with a tilted head, as if observing a wounded animal. Then she smiled. Not sweet, not kind, just pleased. I'll take good care of him, she added. Not that he ever needed much. Emily turned her face away, tears sliding silently into the pillow. She wanted to scream, to curse, to tear something apart. But all she could do was survive the next contraction. Vivian's voice dropped to a whisper as she turned to leave. You lost, Emily. Some women were never meant to win. The nurses returned. They found Emily hyperventilating, her body tense with pain. We're going to get you through this, one of them said, gripping her hand. Just breathe. But it wasn't just labor. It was heartbreak. It was humiliation. It was the feeling of everything inside her being ripped out. Not just the child, but the last pieces of who she thought she was. Hours passed. The sun began to rise through the hospital blinds. Emily screamed as the final push came. Sweat dripped from her forehead. Her throat felt raw from crying out. There was no husband holding her hand, no mother-in-law in the waiting room, no family, no one, except the child she was about to meet. And then, at last, the cry. A nurse placed the small, wriggling newborn on Emily's chest. Her skin was red and soft. Her cry filled the room like music. Emily broke. The tears came fast and full this time, shaking her whole body. But it wasn't just pain anymore. It was release. It was grief and love and disbelief, all crashing at once. The nurse smiled down at her. "It's a girl." Emily ran her fingers gently along the baby's cheek. "Hope," she whispered. Her daughter's name. The only thing that made sense in a world that had collapsed. Later, as Emily rested, a shadow appeared at the door again. Vivian. She wasn't smiling this time. She looked victorious. She walked in without asking and stood beside the crib. "I just wanted to see her once," she said, voice quiet. Emily didn't respond. Vivian looked down at the sleeping baby. "She looks nothing like Daniel." "Maybe that's a blessing," Emily glared at her. "You don't belong here." Vivian turned her head slowly. "No, but neither did you," she said, her voice laced with venom. Then she looked back at the baby. "She'll never know her father didn't want her." "That's probably for the best." Emily sat up as much as her body would allow. "Get out." Vivian raised her hands. "Fine. Enjoy your little moment." She paused in the doorway. "You'll be alone in the end," she added. "People like you always are." When the room was finally quiet again, Emily held her daughter close. She stared at her tiny face, her soft lashes, her perfect little hands. The world was cruel, but in her arms she held something pure, someone worth fighting for, and though her body was weak, her heart, slowly, began to harden. Not in bitterness, but in purpose. The news hit the internet like wildfire. CEO Daniel Carter finalizes divorce from ex-wife amid cheating scandal. Sources say baby may not be his. Carter family breaks. Silence. We support. Daniel's healing and new chapter. Emily's name was everywhere. Not in sympathy, not in support, in shame. Daniel's team had painted her as unstable, disloyal, and dangerous. Every article carried twisted quotes and blurry photos taken on her worst days. One showed her leaving a clinic with her newborn, looking exhausted and pale. The caption read, "Emily Carter, ex-wife, seen postnatal and erratic per witness." She couldn't stop reading them. She hated herself for it, but the need to see how far they'd dragged her kept pulling her back. There were no calls from friends. No messages of support. People believed the headlines. Why wouldn't they? Daniel had the money, the power, the public voice. She had none of it. 3 months after the divorce, a glossy magazine cover appeared at every grocery store checkout. New love, new life, Daniel Carter and Vivian Hart officially engaged. Front and center was a photo of Vivian, radiant in a white gown, flashing a diamond ring. Daniel stood behind her, arm wrapped around her waist, smug as ever. Emily stared at it for a long time before turning away and leaving her groceries behind. She didn't have the money anyway. Judith Carter made things worse. She gave a televised interview at a charity gala, arm in arm with Vivian, and said, "Vivian has brought peace back to our family. She's everything a Carter woman should be, graceful, driven, loyal." When the reporter asked about Emily, Judith tilted her head and gave a slight smile. "We don't discuss irrelevant people." Emily watched it all from her tiny apartment, a one-bedroom rental that smelled like peeling paint and second-hand smoke. The fridge buzzed louder than the TV. The baby crib sat right beside her mattress on the floor. Hope had just turned 3 months. Emily held her while feeding, brushing soft hair from her daughter's forehead. Her little eyes blinked up at her, full of innocence. Emily whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have been stronger." Her bank account was nearly empty. Her last job interview had ended with the manager saying, "We're not sure someone with your background fits the brand." The judgment followed her everywhere. That night, unable to sleep, Emily reached into her old purse and pulled out a wrinkled letter, the one her grandfather had written. She unfolded it slowly. Her fingers trembled. "Emily, if anything happens to me, go see Mr. Holden. He has something that belongs to you. Something important. I didn't want anyone else near it. Not your husband, not even your friends. Trust your instincts. You'll know when it's time. She read it 3 times before grabbing her phone and searching for the name. Holden and West, estate law, retired. There was a number listed. She called it without thinking. To her surprise, someone answered. Holden Residence, an older voice said. Hi, this is Emily Carter. Well, Emily Brooks. My grandfather was Henry Brooks. He told me to contact you. There was a long pause. Then, come tomorrow. Bring ID. Bring the child. The next morning, she dressed Hope in her cleanest onesie and wore her only decent blouse. The bus ride was long, and the walk from the station was longer. But she made it to the address. A small house tucked behind a line of hedges. Not a law office, just a quiet, unassuming place. A tall, thin man in his 70s opened the door. You look just like your mother, he said. Emily blinked. You're Mr. Holden. He nodded. Come in. Inside, the man led her to a study lined with dusty bookshelves. He pulled out a locked metal box, opened it with a key, and handed her a stack of sealed envelopes and a folder. Your grandfather left strict instructions, he said. None of this was to be shared until after his death, and only if you came in person with your child. Emily opened the top envelope and pulled out the will. Her eyes scanned the page, and then widened. It stated clearly, all assets, properties, and holdings owned by Henry Brooks are to be passed to my granddaughter, Emily Brooks, upon the verified birth of her first child. The child shall be named legal heir. Emily shall remain executor and guardian until the child reaches age 21. Emily's breath caught. Her grandfather had left her everything. Land, stocks, accounts, all of it. She had inherited millions. Her heart pounded. Why didn't anyone tell me? I didn't know any of this. Holden sat down across from her and handed her another letter. This one handwritten, like the first. Emily, I always worried you'd end up trusting people who didn't deserve you. I saw it in your eyes. Your love for others, your need to prove yourself. But the world you married into doesn't care about hearts. It only respects power. I couldn't stop the pain, but I could leave you something they could never steal. This is yours. No one knows. Keep it that way. Not even your husband. Emily's hands shook as she lowered the letter. Tears blurred her vision. Mr. Holden cleared his throat. There's more. He opened a map and pointed at a marked area. See this land? It's been leased to a company without permission. We're looking into it. Based on the permits, the business behind it is Carter Development Group. Emily froze. Carter? She repeated. Yes, he said, as in Daniel Carter. Emily sat in Mr. Holden's study, stunned. The air felt heavy around her as she stared at the map. The land marked in red was hers, legally tied to her name, her grandfather's land, her daughter's future, and Daniel had no idea. He was building on it. Illegally. Are you sure it's his company? She asked quietly. Holden nodded. Positive. Carter Development Group filed for expansion into this area last year. But the land titles haven't cleared. They're using temporary permits. And your grandfather never signed off on any of them. But my name isn't even on anything yet, Emily said. No one told me. No one even knew I had a child. That's exactly why they're moving fast, he replied. They didn't think you'd show up. Probably assumed you were out of the picture. Emily looked down at Hope, asleep in her carrier beside the chair, her tiny chest rising and falling with peace and innocence. Daniel had discarded her like trash. Judith had erased her like she never existed. Vivian had stolen the life Emily thought she had, and now they were stealing from her child too. She returned to her apartment in silence. The bus ride was long. Her phone buzzed with another overdue bill notification. But her mind was somewhere else now, sharpening. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was theft, and Daniel was about to find out what it meant to burn the wrong woman. The next day, she went to the county records office. The clerk was polite, but surprised to see her. "Emily Brooks," he said, checking the system. "Oh, interesting. You're the listed beneficiary for parcel 49. A." Emily nodded. "I'd like certified copies of everything connected to it. Ownership, usage, any permits filed, especially recent ones." The man printed the records and handed them to her. She sat at a bench outside and read every word. Her name was there, listed under a family trust. The ownership was real, legal, and undisputed. But under land use requests, she saw something that made her stomach twist. Carter Development Group had applied for construction permits 6 months ago, right after Daniel began pulling away from her. The project name? Carter Villas, a legacy community. They were building luxury homes, on her land, under false pretenses. Emily sat frozen on the bench, the papers fluttering slightly in the wind. It all clicked together. The cruel timing, the sudden push for divorce, Vivian's smug confidence, Judith's determination to erase her. They had no idea she was the heir. They thought they were finally free of her. But they didn't know about the will, or the baby, or the land. And they definitely didn't know that Emily, broken, humiliated, and forgotten, was about to become their biggest problem. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Hope slept beside her, swaddled tightly. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the occasional drip of the leaky bathroom faucet. She thought about everything they'd taken from her. Her reputation, her marriage, her dignity, but not her child, and not her future. The next morning she made her first move. She contacted a legal aid center and scheduled a consultation. She gathered every document, the will, the deed, the letters. She copied them, organized them, and placed them in a folder. She also called the local housing inspector's office and asked to file a report of unauthorized land use. "I need to report fraudulent development on a parcel I own," she said calmly. They asked her to come in with proof. She smiled. She had it. Meanwhile, Daniel and Vivian were appearing on magazine covers again. Power couple's new project, Carter Villas, to break ground this spring. Vivian Carter talks legacy, love, and moving on. Emily read every word with quiet fury. Vivian called herself an anchor in Daniel's stormy past. Judith was quoted saying, "Finally, the Carter name is in the right hands." Emily took screenshots of everything. They were handing her ammunition. 2 weeks later, she sat across from a young attorney named Jada, who had reviewed her documents. Jada leaned forward, eyes wide. "This is massive," she said. "They're in violation of land use law. If this goes to court, you could not only stop construction but sue for damages, and considering the scope of the project." Emily looked down. "What about my daughter?" Jada softened. "Hope is the legal heir. You're her guardian. Everything your grandfather left now belongs to her, through you, and no one can take it from us." Jada shook her head. "No, not unless you let them." Emily sat back. Her heart beat steady. For the first time in months, she felt something she thought she'd lost: control. Emily stood in front of the courthouse in a simple navy dress and flats. No designer bag, no jewelry. Her hair pulled back in a tight bun. Nothing flashy, nothing loud. But inside that plain exterior, something was pulsing, cold, sharp, and unshakable. Purpose. The court clerk had already stamped her documents. Official claim of land inheritance. Cease and desist order against Carter Development Group. Intent to pursue legal action for unauthorized use of land, emotional distress, and defamation. For the first time in over a year, Emily had signed something that was hers. Not forced, not manipulated, not shoved onto her while in labor. This time she signed as someone who knew exactly what she was doing. She didn't send a warning, no calls, no letters. just legal fire. A week later, Daniel received a notice of legal injunction, freezing his latest project indefinitely. Within days, investors were panicking. Contracts were paused. Media outlets began whispering about unconfirmed legal issues behind the Carter Villas project. Then came the headlines: Carter Development tied to land ownership dispute. Air claims fraud. Unknown beneficiary halts luxury housing project. Carter Group silent. Daniel tried to call her. She didn't answer. Vivian emailed her directly. Subject: let's be adults. Emily, whatever this is, let's end it. This isn't good for anyone, especially not your daughter. Let's talk. Discreetly. I'm willing to help you walk away from this without embarrassment. You don't want to go up against us. You'll lose. Vivian Emily read it once, deleted it. But Vivian wasn't finished. 2 days later, she showed up, unannounced, outside Emily's building. She wore sunglasses and a scarf like some washed-up movie star trying not to be noticed. Emily opened the door to find her standing there. Vivian didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside, looked around the modest apartment, and scoffed. Still playing humble, she said. That's cute. Emily said nothing, just folded her arms. Vivian moved closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. You think this little stunt makes you powerful? You'll never win against people like us. Crawl back to your little apartment and disappear. Emily smiled. Just a little. I won't lose, she said quietly. Vivian's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. You're desperate. You want revenge, I get it. But you have a baby. Think about her. Don't burn down her future just to hurt us. Emily looked at her daughter, peacefully sleeping in her bassinet. Then back at Vivian. I'm not burning her future, she said. I'm burning yours. Vivian didn't respond. She just left. Days later, Judith went on a radio show. I heard Emily's trying to claw her way back in, she said with a mocking laugh. Some women just don't know when they've been dismissed. Emily sat at home, listening, sipping tea. She didn't get angry anymore. She didn't cry. She collected it, every insult, every slight, like fuel. The court date was set, and she was ready. The courtroom was packed, press in the back, investors up front, curious onlookers buzzing quietly. Daniel walked in with his legal team, dressed in a tailored suit, jaw tight, eyes bloodshot. Vivian was beside him, lips thin, skin paler than usual. Emily entered quietly with her attorney Jada. She wore the same navy dress, but this time with heels. Hope stayed with a sitter. Today wasn't about emotion. It was about truth. Jada stood first, laying out the claim. Emily Brooks, sole heir to Henry Brooks's estate, proof of property ownership, including land now under illegal development. Medical records proving duress during divorce signing. Articles and statements used to publicly defame Emily. And finally, the will. The courtroom shifted. Daniel's attorney leaned over, whispering frantically. Emily sat still, watching him squirm. Then the judge asked her to speak. Emily stood. Her voice was steady, clear. My grandfather left me land that no one knew about. He protected it for me and for my daughter. That land was stolen by the man who vowed to protect us. He used my silence, my pain, and my name to build something for himself. While tearing me down in the media, she turned toward Daniel and Vivian. You took everything from me. And now, I'm taking back what was mine all along. Daniel stood frozen as the judge flipped through the documents. The room was silent except for the sound of turning pages. When the judge looked up, her expression was unreadable. I've reviewed the will. The land in question was lawfully passed to the plaintiff's child. All development activities by Carter Development Group are in direct violation of estate ownership rights. A sharp gasp echoed from the investors' row. Someone stood up and walked out. Another followed. Daniel's lawyer whispered frantically again, but Daniel didn't respond. He was still staring at Emily, like he was seeing her for the first time. Vivian gripped his arm. Her mask cracked. Do something, she hissed. Daniel stood slowly, adjusted his jacket and turned to Emily. "This doesn't have to go public," he said, his voice flat. "We can handle it privately, a settlement, quiet compensation. For the baby." Emily didn't blink. "Her name is Hope," she said. Daniel faltered. "Fine. Hope. You'll do nothing." Emily cut in, her voice razor sharp. "You'll watch it all fall." He opened his mouth to speak, but she kept going. "You destroyed my name. You used my child. You walked into a hospital room and threw divorce papers on a woman in labor. You laughed while I screamed through contractions. You humiliated me, erased me, and then stole from me." She turned to the judge. "I want full legal damages, public retraction of every false statement, and I want Carter Development dissolved. The land is not for sale. Ever." The judge nodded once. "Request granted." It hit like a hammer. Daniel slumped in his seat. Vivian looked like she'd been slapped. In the back, a reporter slipped out, already typing. Another investor grabbed his coat and followed, muttering, "We're done here." After court adjourned, Vivian rushed over as Emily collected her documents. She looked desperate, makeup cracked, voice shaky. "You're not really going to destroy everything, are you?" she whispered. "You said you loved us." Emily didn't even flinch. "I loved a lie," she said. "Now I'm just setting it on fire." Vivian grabbed her arm. "You don't have to do this. Please, you won." "Walk away," Emily pulled free. "I'm not walking away. I'm walking forward." Judith was waiting outside, surrounded by cameras. A reporter asked, "Mrs. Carter, any comment on your son's illegal development scandal?" Judith's smile faltered. "This is a misunderstanding. My son is a visionary. These claims are exaggerated." Emily stepped out, holding the court order in her hand. "No exaggeration," she said, handing a copy to the reporter. "Everything you need is in here." Judith's eyes widened. "You vile, petty little—" Emily stepped closer, calm, confident. "You backed the wrong woman." Then she walked down the courthouse steps, head high, heels clicking with every step, and didn't look back. 2 weeks later, Carter Development Group collapsed. Headlines flooded every platform. Emily Carter files legal claim, brings down billion-dollar project. Vivian Hart vanishes after scandal. Judith Carter's public fall from grace, silent on her son's crimes. Daniel's assets were frozen. He lost his board seat. Lawsuits stacked on lawsuits. Vivian disappeared from the spotlight. No farewell. No last post. Her name quietly removed from charity boards and influencer lists. Judith tried to spin the story, but no one listened anymore. She was cast out from the elite circles she once ruled. No one wanted to associate with the mother of a fallen fraud. Emily stayed quiet. She didn't gloat. She didn't post. She moved carefully, wisely, and with purpose. She took her settlement money and used it to buy back the Carter estate. The one Judith once said she'd never belong in. She didn't move in. She turned it into a women's shelter. A place for women like her. For the ones who were silenced, left, discarded, shamed. She called it the Hope House, named after her daughter. 1 year later, Emily stood in front of the old mansion, now painted soft white, with gardens blooming on all sides. Children laughed in the backyard. A woman sat on the porch reading a book while her baby slept on her chest. Emily watched it all, holding hope in her arms. "She'll never know what you did to her," Emily whispered, looking up at the sky. "She'll only know what I built from it." Hope giggled and reached for a flower. Emily smiled. She wasn't broken anymore. She was reborn, not from vengeance, but from fire.
The smell of pine and cinnamon should have been comforting, but something felt wrong the moment I stepped through the door. The house was decorated with red and gold ornaments, a massive tree stood in the corner, and about 30 people I had never seen before filled the living room. They all turned to stare at me when Trevor opened the door. "Everyone, this is Simone," Trevor said, his voice cold and formal. "Not my wife. Just Simone." A woman with long dark hair stepped forward, linking her arm through Trevor's. She was wearing a red dress that hugged every curve, and a smile that made my stomach turn. "So glad you could finally make it," she said with fake sweetness. "Trevor, what is this?" I asked quietly, my designer purse suddenly feeling heavy on my shoulder. I had dressed nicely for what I thought was his company Christmas party. I wore a green silk dress and the diamond earrings he'd given me for our anniversary. Now I felt like I was wearing a costume. "This is Vanessa's family," Trevor said, gesturing around the room. "We need to talk." Vanessa. The name I had heard whispered by his co-workers. The name that appeared too often on his phone screen. The woman he swore was just a friend from work. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor as Trevor led me to the center of the room. Everyone was watching. Some held glasses of wine, others had plates of food, but all eyes were on me. The Christmas music playing in the background suddenly seemed too loud. "Simone, I'm filing for divorce," Trevor said, reaching into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a manila envelope and held it out to me. "These are the papers. I need you to sign them." The room started to spin. "What? Trevor, what are you talking about? Can we please talk about this in private?" "There's nothing to talk about. It's over. I'm with Vanessa now." I looked at Vanessa, who was standing there with her hand on Trevor's shoulder, looking at me with something close to pity. "Trevor, we've been married for 7 years. You can't just—" "I can and I am. Sign the papers." My hands shook as I took the envelope. This could not be happening. Not on Christmas Day. Not in front of strangers. "I don't understand. When did you—" "Oh, honey," an older woman stepped forward. She had Vanessa's eyes. Her mother. "Trevor told us all about how difficult you've been. The fighting, the emotional abuse. We're just glad he finally found the courage to leave." "Emotional abuse?" My voice came out as a whisper. "I never—" "It's okay," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You don't have to pretend anymore. Trevor told us everything. How you controlled the money, how you belittled him, how you threatened him when he tried to leave." I felt like I was in a nightmare. Nothing she was saying was true. "Trevor, tell them the truth. Tell them I never did any of that." But Trevor just looked away. He would not meet my eyes. "The truth is already out," Vanessa's father said, raising his glass. "And we're here to celebrate a new beginning. Trevor deserves happiness." "To Trevor and Vanessa," someone shouted. And then it happened. The thing that would haunt me for months. The entire room erupted in cheers. Glasses clinked together. People applauded. They were celebrating my marriage ending. They were celebrating my pain. Vanessa kissed Trevor right in front of me. A long, deep kiss that made several people whistle and cheer even louder. When they pulled apart, Vanessa's mother handed her a small box. "We know you two haven't made it official yet," the older woman said, smiling at her daughter. "But we wanted Vanessa to have this. It belonged to her grandmother." Vanessa opened the box to reveal a ring. Not an engagement ring but a wedding band. Antique gold with small diamonds. "For when the divorce is final," Vanessa's father added. "We're so happy you're joining our family, Trevor." More cheers. More applause. I stood there, holding the divorce papers, feeling like my entire world was crumbling. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of building a life together. And he was ending it like this. In front of strangers. On Christmas. "I need you to leave now," Trevor said, finally looking at me. His eyes were cold. The man I had loved for almost a decade looked at me like I was nothing. "My lawyer will contact you about the details." "Your lawyer?" I could barely speak. "Trevor, we need to talk about this. Please." "There's nothing to talk about. Everything you need to know is in those papers. Now leave. This is Vanessa's family celebration and you're not welcome." A man I assumed was Vanessa's brother stepped forward. He was tall and intimidating. "You heard him. Time to go." I looked around the room one more time. Faces I did not know, celebrating something they knew nothing about. They thought I was the villain in this story. Trevor had painted me as a monster to justify what he was doing. My throat was tight. My eyes burned. But I refused to cry in front of these people. I refused to give them that satisfaction. "Fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll leave." I turned toward the door, still clutching the envelope. Behind me I heard Vanessa say, "Thank God that's over. Now we can really celebrate." The laughter and cheers followed me out into the cold December evening. I walked to my car in a daze, the Christmas lights on the houses around me blurring through tears I could no longer hold back. I sat in my car in that driveway for 10 minutes, shaking. The papers lay on the passenger seat, mocking me. Inside the house, through the windows, I could see people dancing and laughing. Trevor had his arm around Vanessa. They looked happy. And I had never felt more alone in my entire life. Finally, I started the car and drove away. Away from that house, away from those people, away from the man I thought I knew. I drove through neighborhoods decorated with lights and joy, past families having real Christmas celebrations, until I reached my best friend Patricia's house. She opened the door in her pajamas, holding a glass of wine. One look at my face and she pulled me inside. "What happened?" she asked. And I told her everything. About the party that was not a party. About the divorce papers. About Vanessa's family cheering. About being called abusive. About the ring. Patricia listened to it all, her expression growing darker with each detail. When I finished, she hugged me tight. "He's going to regret this," she said fiercely. "I promise you, Simone. He's going to regret every single thing he did tonight." I wanted to believe her. But sitting there in her living room, still in my Christmas dress, still holding those divorce papers, all I felt was broken. "What am I going to do?" I whispered. Patricia pulled back and looked me straight in the eye. "You're going to fight. And you're going to win." I nodded, even though I did not feel strong enough to fight. Even though all I wanted to do was curl up and disappear. But as I sat there, something began to shift inside me. Beneath the hurt and humiliation, something harder started to form. Anger. Determination. Trevor thought he could humiliate me and walk away. He thought he could rewrite our history and make me the villain. He thought he could have his celebration while I fell apart. He was wrong. I did not know it yet, but that Christmas night was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of something else entirely. Something Trevor never saw coming. It was the beginning of my revenge. I did not sleep that night. Patricia made up her guest room for me, but I spent the hours until dawn sitting at her kitchen table, reading through the divorce papers by the harsh overhead light. Each page felt like another slap. Trevor wanted everything. The house we had bought together 5 years ago. The car I drove. Half of my retirement account. And he wanted me to pay him alimony because, according to the papers, his earning potential had been damaged by the emotional toll of the marriage. I read that line 3 times before I understood what he was trying to do. He was not just leaving me. He was trying to destroy me financially and socially. The papers painted a picture of a controlling, abusive wife who had made his life miserable. None of it was true. "This is insane," Patricia said when she came into the kitchen at 6 in the morning and found me still sitting there. She read over my shoulder and her jaw dropped. "He's actually claiming you abused him?" "That's what he told Vanessa's family," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "That's why they were cheering. They think they're saving him from me." Patricia made coffee with shaking hands. She was so angry she could barely hold the pot steady. "We need to call a lawyer. Today. Right now." "It's Christmas," I reminded her. "I don't care if it's the Pope's birthday. We're finding you a lawyer. But first I needed to go home. Our home. The house Trevor and I had bought in a nice neighborhood with good schools, planning for children that never came because Trevor kept saying he was not ready yet. Now I knew why. Patricia drove me there at 7 in the morning. Trevor's car was not in the driveway. Good. I did not want to see him. Not yet. Not until I had a plan. I used my key to get in, half expecting him to have changed the locks already. But the door opened and I stepped into what used to be my sanctuary. Now it just felt empty. The Christmas tree we had decorated together 2 weeks ago stood in the corner, presents still underneath it. Presents I had carefully wrapped and hidden. Presents for a husband who was planning to divorce me even as I was shopping for him. I walked through the house in a daze. Everything looked the same but felt different. How long had Trevor been planning this? How long had he been living a lie? Then I went to his office. Trevor was not the most careful man. He thought he was smart, but he got lazy. I had never snooped before because I had trusted him. That trust was gone now. I opened his laptop. He had not even logged out. His email was right there, open and waiting. What I found made my blood run cold. Emails to Vanessa going back 2 years. Not just affair emails, though there were plenty of those. But planning emails. Strategy emails. Emails about how to handle Simone and make the transition smooth. One email from 8 months ago made me sit down hard in his desk chair. "Once we get married, we can use the equity from her house for our down payment on something bigger. My lawyer says if we can prove emotional distress, I can get alimony too. Just need to make sure everyone thinks she's the problem. Your family will back me up, right?" Vanessa's response: "Of course, baby. My parents already don't like that you're married. Once they meet her, they'll see what you mean. We just need to control the narrative." Control the narrative. That's what last night had been about. making sure everyone saw his version of events first so when I tried to defend myself I would look like I was lying. I kept reading. Email after email of them planning my downfall. Planning how to take my money, my reputation, my life. Another email from 6 months ago. Moved another $10K from the business account to my personal one. Simone never checks the statements. She trusts me too much, lol. He had been stealing from me. From our joint business account that we had set up to manage the rental properties we owned together. Properties I had found and negotiated for. Properties that were in both our names but that I managed. I started taking screenshots. Every email, every text message I could find, every piece of evidence that showed what he had really been doing. I sent them all to my personal email address. Then I found the life insurance policy. Trevor had taken out a policy on me 6 months ago. A big one. With him as the sole beneficiary. My hands started shaking so hard I could barely hold the mouse. Why would he do that? We already had life insurance through our jobs. Why would he need another policy on me just months before filing for divorce? I pushed that thought away. I could not go down that dark path right now. I needed to focus on what I could prove, what I could use. I went to our bedroom next. His closet was half empty. He had been moving things out gradually, so carefully that I had not noticed. How stupid had I been? How blind? But in the back of his closet, in a box under some old shoes, I found more papers. Bank statements for an account I did not know about. Credit card bills for expenses I had never seen. Receipts from hotels and restaurants where he had taken Vanessa while I thought he was at work conferences. More evidence. I photographed all of it with my phone. In his nightstand I found something that made my stomach turn. A notebook where he had been tracking our conversations, my schedule, my movements. Notes about my moods, my reactions, things I said. It was like he had been building a case against me, documenting everything to use later. He's been planning this for at least a year, I said when I came back downstairs where Patricia was waiting. Maybe longer. I showed her everything I had found. The emails, the bank statements, the notebook. With each new piece of evidence, Patricia's expression got darker. This is not just a divorce, she said slowly. This is calculated. This is, Simone, this is financial abuse. This is fraud. I know. We need to call the police. He stole from you. Not yet, I said. First I need a lawyer. A really good lawyer. Because I'm not just going to fight this divorce. I'm going to make sure Trevor regrets every single thing he did. Patricia hugged me. There's my girl. I was wondering when she would show up. We left the house and went back to Patricia's place. She had already been making calls despite it being Christmas. Her cousin was a lawyer and her cousin knew people. By noon, I was on the phone with Margaret Richardson, one of the best divorce lawyers in the state. She agreed to meet me the next day, Christmas being over. Bring everything, she told me. Every piece of evidence you have. If what you're telling me is true, we're not just fighting a divorce. We're going after him for fraud, theft, and emotional distress. That night, staying in Patricia's guest room, I finally let myself cry. I cried for the marriage I thought I had. I cried for the man I thought Trevor was. I cried for 7 years of my life that I could never get back. But I only let myself cry for one night. Because by morning, the sadness had turned into something else. Something sharper. Something that felt like power. Trevor had thought he was so smart. He thought he had planned everything perfectly. He thought I would just sign the papers and go away quietly, too humiliated to fight back. He was about to learn just how wrong he was. I got up the next morning and got dressed. I did my makeup carefully. I wore my best suit. And I went to meet with Margaret Richardson with a folder full of evidence that was going to destroy Trevor's perfect plan. Good morning, Margaret said when I walked into her office. She was a tall woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. Let's see what we're working with. I laid it all out. The emails. The bank statements. The notebook. The life insurance policy. Everything. Margaret's expression barely changed as she read through it all, but I saw her jaw tighten. After 20 minutes of silence, she looked up at me. Mrs. Carter, your husband is a fool. Why do you say that? Because he documented everything. Every crime, every lie, every bit of fraud. It's all here. He thinks he's been clever, but what he's actually done is build our entire case for us. So what do we do? Margaret smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator who had just spotted prey. We destroy him, she said simply. We take everything he tried to take from you and we make sure the truth comes out. Every bit of it. I want him to pay for what he did, I said. Oh, he will. By the time we're done, he'll wish he had just asked for a simple, honest divorce. But he didn't. He chose to lie and cheat and steal. And that was his biggest mistake. I left Margaret's office feeling something I had not felt since Christmas night. Hope. Not hope that Trevor would come back. I did not want him back. But hope that justice was possible. Hope that I could rebuild. And hope that Trevor Carter was about to learn what it felt like to lose everything. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of meetings and paperwork. Margaret Richardson moved fast. She filed motions to freeze our joint assets so Trevor could not take anything else. She submitted all the evidence I had gathered to the court. And she hired a forensic accountant to dig even deeper into what Trevor had been doing. What they found was worse than I imagined. He's been siphoning money for almost 2 years, the accountant, a quiet woman named Grace, told us in Margaret's office. She spread financial statements across the large table. From your joint business account, from the rental property income, even from your personal checking account. Small amounts each time so you would not notice. But it adds up. How much? I asked, though I was not sure I wanted to know. $87,000. I felt like I had been punched. That's almost all our savings. Not just savings. He also took out loans using the rental properties as collateral. Without your signature, which means he forged documents. That's a felony. Margaret looked at me. Simone, this is bigger than a divorce case now. This is criminal fraud. We need to decide if you want to press charges. I thought about Trevor's face on Christmas night. The coldness in his eyes. The way he had stood there with Vanessa while her family cheered for my pain. The way he had tried to make me look like the villain. Yes, I said. I want to press charges. Good, Margaret said. Because men like Trevor need to learn that actions have consequences. But there was more. Grace pulled out another set of papers. I found something else interesting. Vanessa Rodriguez has significant debt. Credit cards, student loans, even some legal judgments against her from previous relationships. So she's broke, Patricia said. She had come to this meeting for moral support. Very broke, Grace confirmed. And there are text messages between her and Trevor where she specifically asks him about your assets. About the house, the rental properties, your retirement account. She knew exactly what he had and what he was planning to do to get it. I felt sick. She was with him for the money. Looks that way. There are messages where she talks about needing to pay off her debts, about how being with Trevor would solve all her problems. This was not just an affair. This was a calculated plan by both of them. Margaret started making notes. This is good for us. It shows premeditation. It shows that both of them knew what they were doing was wrong but did it anyway. The judge will not look kindly on this. Over the next week, more evidence came to light. The forensic accountant found offshore accounts Trevor had opened. She found cash withdrawals that he claimed were for business but were actually for trips with Vanessa. She found receipts for jewelry he had bought Vanessa using our joint credit card. Every discovery made me angrier. But it also made me more determined. I spent my days working with Margaret and my nights trying to keep my regular life going. I still had my job at the marketing firm. I could not afford to fall apart even though I wanted to. My boss, a kind woman named Dorothy, called me into her office one afternoon. Simone, I heard about what happened, she said gently. How are you holding up? I had not told anyone at work except Dorothy. I'm managing, I said. Listen, I know you're dealing with a lot right now. But I have something that might help take your mind off things. We just landed a huge account, and I want you to lead the campaign. Really? I was surprised. This was the kind of account that could make a career. Really? You're one of our best strategists, and I think you're ready for this level of responsibility. It's going to mean long hours and a lot of work. But it will also mean a significant raise and a promotion to senior director. A promotion. More money. More security. Exactly what I needed right now. I'll take it, I said. Dorothy smiled. I thought you would. We start next week. I left her office feeling something I had not felt in weeks. Pride. Purpose. I was not just going to survive what Trevor did to me. I was going to thrive. That night, back at Patricia's house, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer it, but something made me pick up. Hello? Simone? It's Vanessa. I went cold. How did you get this number? From Trevor's phone. Listen, we need to talk. We have nothing to talk about. Please just hear me out. I didn't know you were going to be at that party. Trevor said you knew about the divorce, that you had agreed to it. I didn't know he was going to surprise you like that. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You didn't know? Vanessa, I have your emails. I know you've been planning this with him for 2 years. I know about the money you're after. So don't call me and lie. There was silence on the other end. Then, Look, things have gotten complicated. Complicated how? Trevor lost his job. Some kind of ethics investigation. They found out he was using company resources for personal business. He's been unemployed for a week and he didn't tell me until yesterday. Good, I thought. But I said nothing. I just thought you should know, Vanessa continued. And maybe we could work something out? With a divorce? Trevor says you're making things difficult and expensive with your lawyer. Your boyfriend stole nearly $90,000 from me, Vanessa. He forged documents. He committed fraud. And you helped him plan it. So no, we're not working anything out. You and Trevor made your choices. Now you get to live with the consequences. But I hung up. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From satisfaction. The cracks were already starting to show in Trevor's perfect plan. 2 days later, Margaret called me with news. Trevor's lawyer wants to negotiate. They're willing to drop the alimony demand if you'll agree to a quick divorce. No, I said immediately. That's what I told them. They're getting nervous, Simone. They know what we have. They know they're going to lose if this goes to court. Good. Let them be nervous. The divorce hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks away. In that time, I threw myself into my new project at work. I worked 12-hour days, came up with brilliant campaigns, impressed clients. My boss was thrilled. My team respected me. I was succeeding. At night, I worked with Margaret, preparing for the hearing. We practiced what I would say, how I would present myself. Margaret was confident we would win, but she wanted to be prepared for anything. Trevor's lawyer is going to try to make you look bad, she warned me. They're going to bring up the emotional abuse claims, try to make you seem unstable or controlling. Let them try, I said. I have emails where Trevor admits he made all that up. I know. But courtrooms can be unpredictable. Just be ready. I was ready. I had been getting ready since Christmas night. 1 month after Trevor had humiliated me in front of strangers, I sat in Margaret's office reviewing the final evidence packet we would present to the judge. It was thick with proof of everything Trevor had done. The theft, the fraud, the lies, the affair, the planning. All of it. This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've ever seen, Margaret said. He's going to lose everything. Good, I said. And I meant it. Because Trevor thought he could throw away 7 years of marriage like it meant nothing. He thought he could steal from me and humiliate me and walk away with Vanessa into a perfect new life. But I was not going to let that happen. I was going to make sure the truth came out. All of it. And I was going to make sure that Trevor paid for every lie he told, every dollar he stole, every moment of pain he caused. The old Simone, the one who trusted and believed and loved, was gone. The woman Trevor had humiliated on Christmas Day was dead. In her place was someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who was going to win. And Trevor Carter had no idea what was coming for him. The day after I finalized the evidence packet with Margaret, I did something I had been thinking about for weeks. I walked into an upscale hair salon in the downtown district and told the stylist to cut it all off. All of it? She asked, running her fingers through my long hair that fell past my shoulders. Hair that Trevor had loved, that he used to play with while we watched movies. All of it, I confirmed. Something short, powerful, professional. 2 hours later, I walked out with a sharp, chin-length bob that made me look like a completely different person. I looked successful. I looked confident. I looked like someone you did not mess with. Patricia nearly dropped her coffee when I walked into her apartment. Oh my God. Simone, you look amazing. I looked at myself in the mirror by her door. She was right. I did look amazing. I looked like the woman I was supposed to become before Trevor had tried to destroy me. That weekend, Patricia took me shopping. I had been living out of a suitcase at her place for a month, wearing the same few outfits over and over. It was time to rebuild my wardrobe too. We went to stores I normally would have said were too expensive. But my promotion had come with a substantial raise, and I had money in accounts Trevor had never known about. Money I had inherited from my grandmother and kept separate, thank God. I bought 3 new power suits in black, navy, and charcoal gray. I bought silk blouses and professional dresses. I bought new shoes with heels that made me 3 inches taller. I bought a leather briefcase that cost more than I wanted to think about. You're transforming, Patricia said as we loaded shopping bags into her car. I'm surviving, I corrected. No, she said firmly. You're thriving. There's a difference. She was right. Against all odds, I was actually doing well. My new project at work was exceeding expectations. The client loved my ideas. Dorothy had already hinted at even bigger opportunities coming my way. My personal life was a disaster, yes. I was living in my best friend's guest room, going through a terrible divorce, and dealing with the emotional aftermath of betrayal. But professionally, I was soaring. Monday morning, I walked into the office in my new navy suit with my new haircut and new confidence. People actually stopped and stared. Several coworkers complimented me. One of the junior associates asked if I had been on vacation because I looked refreshed. I had not been on vacation. I had been in hell. But I was not going to tell them that. Dorothy called me into her office mid-morning. "Simone, you look incredible. That confidence looks good on you." "Thank you. I have another opportunity for you. Our Seattle office is opening a new division and they need someone to head it up. It would mean relocating at least for a year. Significant pay increase, full benefits, and it's a path to VP if you do it well." Interested. Seattle. 3,000 miles away from Trevor and Vanessa and everything that had happened here. A fresh start in every possible way. But then I thought about the divorce hearing coming up. About the case Margaret was building. About watching Trevor face the consequences of what he did. "Can I think about it?" I asked. "Of course. But I need an answer within 2 weeks. They want someone in place by next quarter." I left her office with my head spinning. The old Simone would have jumped at this opportunity. But the new Simone wanted something else first. She wanted justice. That evening, I met with Margaret again. She had news about Trevor's employment situation. "He's not just unemployed," she said. "He's essentially unemployable in his field. Word got out about why he was fired. Ethics violations don't look good in sales management." "What's he doing for money?" I asked. "According to our sources, living off Vanessa. She's been picking up extra shifts at work and her family has been helping them. Apparently, her parents aren't as thrilled about the relationship now that Trevor isn't bringing in income." I felt a small surge of satisfaction. Good. There's more. "Trevor tried to sell one of the rental properties without your permission. The title company caught it and reported it to us. It's more evidence of fraud. He's getting desperate. Very. His lawyer has asked to meet 3 times this week. He wants to settle out of court. He knows they'll lose if this goes before a judge." "What are they offering?" Margaret slid a paper across her desk. I read the settlement terms and almost laughed. "He wants me to give him the house and $40,000, and in exchange he'll drop the emotional abuse claims? That's the offer. Tell them no." "Already did," Margaret said with a slight smile. "I told them we'll see them in court." The next few weeks fell into a pattern. I worked during the day building campaigns and impressing clients. I met with Margaret in the evenings, preparing for the hearing. And at night I slowly started to feel like myself again. Not the old myself. That woman was gone. But a new version. Stronger. Harder. Less trusting but more capable. Patricia and I started having dinner together every night, cooking in her kitchen and talking about everything except Trevor. We talked about her boyfriend, about the new book she was reading, about a business idea we had kicked around for years. "What if we actually did it?" I said one night over pasta. "Started our own consulting firm. You've got the business background, I've got the marketing expertise. We could work for ourselves." "I've been thinking about that too," Patricia admitted. "Especially watching you deal with everything at your company. What if we weren't dependent on someone else for our livelihood? We'd need capital. Clients. A business plan. We could do it though. We're smart enough." I thought about the Seattle offer. About running someone else's division versus building something of my own. Let's start planning it. If nothing else, it gives us a backup plan. We stayed up until midnight that night, sketching out ideas on napkins. What services would we offer? Who would our target clients be? How much money would we need to start? By the time I went to bed, I was more excited than I had been in months. Not about the divorce or about beating Trevor. About building something new. About having a future that was entirely mine. 2 weeks before the court date, I got a call from Trevor. He had gotten my new number somehow, probably from one of our mutual friends. "Simone, please, we need to talk." I almost hung up. But curiosity won. "Talk about what?" "About the divorce. About the settlement. My lawyer says you won't negotiate." "That's right." "Why are you being like this? Why can't we just end this quietly?" I had to laugh at that. "You ended our marriage by humiliating me in front of strangers on Christmas Day, Trevor. You stole from me. You lied about me. And now you want me to make this easy for you? I made mistakes, okay? I know that. But this thing you're doing, dragging it all out, making it expensive, it's hurting both of us." "No," I said coldly. "It's hurting you. I'm doing fine." "Simone, the hearing is in 2 weeks. Show up or don't. I don't care. But I'm not settling. I'm not making this easy. You wanted a divorce? Fine. You're getting one. But you're also getting exactly what you deserve. I hung up before he could respond. That night, I moved out of Patricia's guest room. Not back to the house I had shared with Trevor. I was not ready for that yet. But into my own apartment. Small, temporary, just a one-bedroom in a nice building. But mine. I bought furniture. I hung pictures. I made it a home. And for the first time since Christmas, I felt like I could breathe. The court date loomed closer. Margaret assured me we were ready. The evidence was overwhelming. The forensic accountant had documented everything. My testimony was solid. He's going to lose, Simone, Margaret told me the day before the hearing. Be prepared for that. Sometimes winning doesn't feel the way you think it will. I'll be fine, I said. And I was. Because this was not just about beating Trevor anymore. It was about proving to myself that I was strong enough to survive what he did to me. Strong enough to rebuild. Strong enough to thrive. I had spent years being Trevor's wife, making him the center of my world. I had sacrificed opportunities for his career. I had put his needs first. I had trusted him completely. And he had thrown it all away like it meant nothing. But I was not nothing. I was Simone Carter, soon to be Simone Thompson again, my maiden name. I was a senior director at a major marketing firm. I was planning to start my own business. I was successful and independent and strong. And tomorrow I was going to watch Trevor face the consequences of his actions. Tomorrow justice would finally come. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Plain wood paneling, fluorescent lights, and hard benches that made my back ache within minutes. But I sat up straight in my new black suit, my hair perfect, my makeup professional. Next to me, Margaret Richardson looked like she was born for this moment. Across the aisle, Trevor sat with his lawyer, a tired-looking man named Gerald Murphy who kept shuffling papers nervously. Trevor would not look at me. He stared straight ahead, his jaw tight. He looked thinner than I remembered. Less confident. Vanessa was not in the courtroom. Smart. Margaret would have torn her apart on the stand if she had shown up. All rise, the bailiff said, and Judge Patricia Okonkwo entered. She was a black woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Margaret had told me she was tough but fair. Exactly what I needed. The hearing began. Trevor's lawyer went first, presenting his case. He painted a picture of a marriage that had fallen apart due to irreconcilable differences, and portrayed Trevor as a man who just wanted to move on with his life. He did not mention the affair. He did not mention Vanessa. He definitely did not mention the money. Then it was Margaret's turn. She started slowly establishing the timeline of our marriage. The good years. The joint business account we had opened. The rental properties we had bought together. The life we had built. Then she started presenting evidence. Your Honor, I'd like to submit Exhibit A. These are email communications between Mr. Carter and Ms. Vanessa Rodriguez, showing that their affair began over 2 years ago, while he was still very much married to my client. Judge Okonkwo read the emails, her expression neutral. Noted. Continue. Margaret presented more evidence. The bank statements showing the stolen money. The forged documents. The credit card receipts. The notebook where Trevor had tracked my movements like I was a suspect instead of his wife. With each piece of evidence, Trevor slumped lower in his chair. Your Honor, Margaret said, her voice strong and clear. This is not a case of a marriage that simply fell apart. This is a case of calculated financial fraud, emotional manipulation, and premeditated betrayal. Mr. Carter did not just want a divorce. He wanted to take everything my client had worked for, while simultaneously destroying her reputation to justify his actions. Trevor's lawyer tried to object, tried to claim the evidence was taken illegally. But Margaret had documented everything properly. Every email, every bank statement, every piece of evidence had been obtained legally. Then Margaret called me to the stand. I walked up there with my head high, put my hand on the Bible, and swore to tell the truth. And I did. I told the truth about everything. I testified about the Christmas party. About being handed divorce papers in front of strangers. About Vanessa's family cheering while my marriage ended. About discovering the stolen money. About finding the emails and the notebook and the evidence that Trevor had been planning this for years. Trevor's lawyer tried to trip me up during cross-examination, asking questions designed to make me seem angry or vindictive. But Margaret had prepared me well. Mrs. Carter, isn't it true that you're just angry your husband left you for a younger woman? No, I said calmly. I'm angry that he stole from me, lied about me, and committed fraud. The affair is just the reason he did those things. Isn't it true that you controlled the finances in your marriage, that you were domineering? I managed our rental properties because I'm good at it. Trevor had full access to all our accounts. He chose to steal from them instead of talking to me like an adult. The lawyer tried for another 20 minutes, but he could not shake my testimony. Because I was telling the truth, and the evidence backed up every word I said. When Trevor took the stand, he tried to claim he had made mistakes, but that I was exaggerating what he had done. He tried to say the stolen money was for business investments that did not work out. He tried to say he had been documenting my behavior because he was concerned about my mental health. But Margaret tore his story apart piece by piece. She showed that the business investments were actually trips with Vanessa. She showed that the concerns about mental health came only after he started the affair. She made him look like exactly what he was, a liar and a thief. After 3 hours of testimony and arguments, Judge Okonkwo called a recess to review the evidence. We waited in a small room while she deliberated. "You did great up there," Margaret told me. "Do you think we'll win?" "Yes. But remember what I said. Winning might not feel the way you expect." 45 minutes later, we were called back into the courtroom. Judge Okonkwo had her decision ready. "I have reviewed the evidence presented by both parties," she began. "And I have to say, in my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such clear-cut proof of financial fraud and emotional manipulation." Trevor's face went pale. "Mr. Carter, you stole from your wife. You forged documents. You systematically planned to take her assets while destroying her reputation. These are not the actions of a man who simply wanted a divorce. These are the actions of a criminal." The judge continued, detailing her ruling. "The divorce was granted. The house went to me. The rental properties went to me. Trevor had to pay back every dollar he stole plus damages. He got no alimony. In fact, he had to pay me alimony for the next 2 years. Furthermore," Judge Okonkwo said, "I am referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution. Mr. Carter, you are fortunate that your wife has not pressed charges yet. If I were you, I would consider that a mercy you do not deserve." Trevor stood there looking like he might be sick. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, but Trevor shook it off. "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Carter?" the judge asked. Trevor looked at me for the first time since the hearing began. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry, Simone." I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, nothing. He was just a man who had made terrible choices. He was not my problem anymore. "Apology noted," the judge said dryly. "Though I suspect it comes about 2 years too late. Court is adjourned." I walked out of that courtroom a free woman. Legally single. Financially secure. Vindicated. Margaret hugged me outside. "You did it. It's over." "It's over," I repeated. And it was. This chapter of my life was finally closed. Patricia was waiting outside the courthouse with a bottle of champagne. We went back to my apartment and celebrated, the three of us. We toasted to justice, to new beginnings, to freedom. But Margaret had been right. Winning did not feel the way I expected. I had thought I would feel triumphant, powerful. Instead, I just felt tired. Relieved, yes, but mostly tired. The next day I went back to work. Dorothy was thrilled to hear the divorce was final. "So," she said, "about that Seattle position. Still interested?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. A fresh start across the country sounded appealing. But something held me back. "Actually," I said, "I have a different idea. What if instead of me moving to Seattle, I started my own consulting firm? I could still work with your company as a contractor, but I'd have the freedom to build my own client base." Dorothy leaned back in her chair, considering. "You know, that's not a bad idea. We've been thinking about outsourcing some of our marketing work anyway. If you had your own firm, we could hire you as a consultant and it would save us the overhead of a full-time senior director position." "Exactly. Let me talk to the board. But Simone, if you're serious about this, I think we could make it work." I left her office feeling energized for the first time in months. Patricia and I had been planning our consulting firm in theory. Now it was time to make it real. That weekend, Patricia and I sat down with a real business plan. We had both been saving money. We had connections in the industry. We had experience and expertise. "We need a name," Patricia said. We threw around ideas for hours before finally settling on Thompson and Associates. My maiden name, which I was taking back, plus room to grow if we hired more people later. "It's perfect," Patricia said. We spent the next month working on everything else. We hired a lawyer to set up the LLC. We designed a website. We reached out to potential clients. We worked our regular jobs during the day and built our business at night. It was exhausting. But it was also exciting in a way I had not felt in years. This was mine. Ours. Not dependent on a husband or a boss or anyone else. Our success or failure would be entirely up to us. 2 months after the divorce was final, we landed our first client. A mid-sized tech company that needed help rebranding. It was not huge, but it was a start. Dorothy made good on her promise. My former company became our second client, hiring us to manage several of their campaigns. It was steady income and a strong reference. By month 3, we had 5 clients and enough money to rent a small office space. By month 6, we had 10 clients and needed to hire our first employee. Thompson and Associates was growing. And I was thriving. Not just surviving, not just getting by, but actually thriving. I was building something that was mine. I was successful on my own terms. One evening, working late in our new office, Patricia looked up from her laptop and smiled at me. "You know what's crazy?" she said. "What?" "Trevor thought he was destroying you. Instead, he set you free. If he hadn't blown up your marriage, would you have ever taken this risk? Would you have ever started this company?" I thought about it. She was right. The old Simone, comfortable in her marriage and her job, probably would never have had the courage to start her own business. She would have played it safe. But the new Simone, the one who had been forged in fire and betrayal, was not afraid anymore. She knew she could survive anything. And if she could survive what Trevor did, she could succeed at anything. "You're right," I said. "In a weird way, Trevor did me a favor." "Don't tell him that," Patricia laughed. "His ego couldn't handle it." We worked until midnight that night, finalizing a pitch for a major client. A Fortune 500 company that could take our business to the next level. As I drove home to my apartment, I thought about where I had been 6 months ago. Sitting in a living room full of strangers, being handed divorce papers, being humiliated and betrayed. And now I was here. Owner of my own successful business. Independent, strong, happy. Trevor had tried to take everything from me. Instead, he had given me something better. He had given me myself back. And I was never giving that away again. 6 months after the divorce was final, I was sitting in my office at Thompson and Associates when my phone buzzed with a message from a number I did not recognize. "This is Angela Carter, Trevor's mother. I need to talk to you about my son." I stared at the message for a long moment. Angela had been kind to me during the marriage, but she had sided with Trevor during the divorce. I had not heard from her since. Against my better judgment, I called her back. "Simone," she answered on the first ring. "Thank you for calling." "What's this about, Angela?" "It's Trevor. Things are not going well for him." "That's not my problem anymore," I said, but not unkindly. "I know. And I'm not calling to ask you to help him. I just thought you should know. He lost another job last week. That's 3 in 6 months. The fraud case is following him everywhere. No one wants to hire him." "He should have thought about that before he committed fraud," I said. "You're right. He's made terrible choices. I told him that. I told him what he did to you was unforgivable." She paused. "I also called to apologize. I should have supported you during the divorce. I should have believed you. I'm sorry. I was surprised by that. Thank you. And Simone, I need you to know something. That girl he left you for? Vanessa? She's leaving him. Or she already left. I'm not sure. But I know they've been fighting constantly and her family wants nothing to do with him now that he has no money." A small part of me felt satisfied at that news. But mostly I just felt distant from it all. Trevor's problems were not my problems anymore. "I appreciate you telling me," I said. "But I've moved on. I hope Trevor figures things out, but it's not my concern anymore." "I understand. You take care of yourself, Simone. You always were too good for him." After we hung up, I sat in my office thinking about that conversation. Trevor was struggling. His perfect plan with Vanessa had fallen apart. He was reaping what he had sown. I felt no guilt about that. No urge to help him or fix things. Just nothing. Patricia poked her head into my office. "You okay? You look deep in thought." Trevor's mother called. "Apparently his life is falling apart." "Good," Patricia said without hesitation. "That's what I thought." Over the next few weeks, I heard more through the grapevine. Our city was not that big and we had mutual acquaintances. Word traveled. Trevor had been evicted from the apartment he was renting. Vanessa had moved out weeks before, leaving him with the lease he could not afford. He was living with his parents now at 35 years old. The rental properties he had tried to steal were now mine, bringing in steady income. The house we had shared was mine too, though I had not moved back in yet. I was renting it out, making it profitable instead of just sitting empty holding bad memories. Thompson and Associates landed that Fortune 500 account. It was huge. It meant hiring 3 more employees and moving to a bigger office. Patricia and I could barely believe how fast we were growing. "We did this," Patricia said at our 1-year anniversary party. "We built this from nothing." "From less than nothing," I corrected. "We built this from ashes." My personal life was good too. I had started dating again, nothing serious yet, just testing the waters. I had joined a gym and a book club. I had friends and hobbies and a life that was entirely mine. One evening, I finally went back to the house. The renter's lease was up and I needed to decide what to do with it. Keep renting it out or sell it or maybe even move back in. I walked through the room slowly. The renters had taken good care of it. It looked almost exactly like it had when Trevor and I lived there, minus the memories. I stood in the kitchen where Trevor and I used to cook dinner together on Sunday nights. I went upstairs to the bedroom where I had once thought we would raise children. I looked out the window at the backyard where we had talked about getting a dog. All those dreams felt like they belonged to a different person. The woman who had lived here with Trevor was gone. I was someone else now. My phone rang. An unknown number again, but this time I recognized Trevor's voice immediately. "Simone, please don't hang up." "What do you want, Trevor?" "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I'm desperate. I need help. I'm not giving you money. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for, I don't know, a reference, a good word, something so I can get a job. I can't keep living like this." I looked around the house that was now mine. The house he had tried to take from me. "You destroyed my reputation, Trevor. You told people I was abusive. You humiliated me in front of strangers. And now you want me to help you?" I was wrong. I was so wrong. I know that now. Vanessa left me for someone with money just like I left you for her. Turns out karma is real. Yes, it is. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that. I just need help finding work. I have to pay you back what I stole, and I can't do that if I can't get a job. Part of me wanted to hang up. Let him struggle. Let him face the consequences. But another part, a smaller part, remembered the man he used to be before he made all these terrible choices. "I'll think about it," I said finally. "Don't call me again. If I decide to help, I'll reach out. Otherwise, consider this conversation the last one we'll ever have. Thank you, Simone. Thank you." I hung up and stood in the empty house for another hour, thinking. Then I made my decision. I called Margaret. "I need you to draft something for me," I said. "A letter. Factual. Saying that Trevor Carter and I were married, that the marriage ended, but that during our marriage he was a competent sales manager. Nothing about the fraud, nothing about the affair. Just basic employment verification." "You sure you want to do that?" Margaret asked. "I'm sure. He needs to work to pay me back what he owes. This is in my best interest. Plus, I want him to know that I'm the bigger person. That even after everything he did, I didn't sink to his level." "All right. I'll draft it and send it over tomorrow." The next day, I had Margaret send the letter directly to Trevor's email. I did not contact him personally. I did not want to open that door. But I did what I said I would do. Not for him. For me. Because I was not going to let what he did turn me into someone bitter and vengeful. I was going to be successful and happy and good despite everything. 2 weeks later, I heard through Angela that Trevor had gotten a job. Nothing fancy, just an entry-level sales position. But it was work. I was glad. Not for Trevor's sake, but because it meant he could start paying me back. And because it meant I could truly close this chapter and move on. Thompson and Associates continued to grow. We landed more clients. We hired more staff. We moved into an even bigger office. We were successful beyond what I had dreamed possible. And I was happy. Really, truly happy. One evening, working late at the office, I got an email from someone unexpected. Benjamin Cole, the CEO of one of our Fortune 500 clients. "Miss Thompson," the email read. "I've been impressed with your work on our account. I'd like to discuss a potential partnership opportunity. Would you be available for dinner this week to discuss?" A partnership with Cole Industries would take Thompson and Associates to an entirely new level. This was huge. I agreed to the dinner, and 3 days later I found myself at an upscale restaurant downtown, sitting across from Benjamin Cole. He was tall, well-dressed, with gray at his temples and kind eyes. Older than me by maybe 10 years. Successful, clearly, but not arrogant about it. "I'll be honest, Miss Thompson," he said over appetizers. "This dinner is partly about business and partly personal curiosity." Oh, I was intrigued. "Your company has impressed me. But more than that, you've impressed me. I did some research. I know about your divorce, about what your ex-husband did. And I'm amazed that you came through that and built something this successful so quickly. It was either build something or fall apart, I said honestly. I chose to build. That takes incredible strength. We talked for 3 hours. About business, yes. About the potential partnership and what it could mean for both our companies. But also about life, about resilience, about second chances. By the end of dinner, I realized I was not just interested in the business opportunity. I was interested in Benjamin as a person. I'd like to do this again, he said as we were leaving. If you're amenable. Another dinner. Maybe without the business talk this time. I smiled. I'd like that. As I drove home that night, I thought about how far I had come. A year ago, I had been served divorce papers on Christmas Day. I had been humiliated, betrayed, broken. Now I was the owner of a successful business. I was financially independent. I was going on dates with successful, kind men who treated me with respect. Trevor had tried to destroy me. Instead, he had set me free to become the person I was always meant to be. And somewhere across town, he was struggling to rebuild a life he had thrown away for nothing. I did not feel guilty about that. I felt grateful. Grateful that I had survived. Grateful that I had thrived. And grateful that I never had to see Trevor Carter again. Benjamin Cole and I went on that second dinner date. And a third. And a fourth. Within 2 months, we were officially dating. He was different from Trevor in every way that mattered. Honest. Successful on his own merit. Respectful. He did not try to control me or change me. He celebrated my success instead of feeling threatened by it. You're remarkable, he told me one evening as we walked through the city after dinner. The way you rebuilt your life after everything that happened. Most people would have given up. I couldn't afford to give up, I said. I had to prove to myself that I was stronger than what he did to me. Well, you definitely proved that. Benjamin introduced me to his world. Business dinners with CEOs and investors. Charity galas. Industry conferences. I held my own in these spaces, impressing his colleagues with my knowledge and my company's success. Thompson and Associates was thriving. We had 20 employees now. We had offices in 2 cities. We were grossing over $2 million annually. Patricia and I were living a dream we had only imagined a year ago. One afternoon, I was at a business networking event when I saw someone I recognized. Vanessa. She was standing by the bar, dressed professionally but looking tired. When she saw me, her face went pale. I could have walked away. Should have walked away. But curiosity got the better of me. Vanessa, I said, walking up to her. Simone. She looked like she wanted to run. I didn't expect to see you here. I'm attending with my business partner. We're networking. You. Same. I'm trying to, look, I know you don't want to hear this, but I owe you an apology. I waited. What I did, what we did to you, it was wrong. I knew you were his wife. I knew he was stealing from you and lying about you. I went along with it because I was broke and desperate and I thought he would take care of me. I was wrong about everything. Yes, you were, I said. He left me too, you know. When the money ran out and things got hard. He blamed me for all his problems, said I was the reason he lost everything. He's bitter and angry and he's making everyone around him miserable. That's not my problem anymore, I said. I know. I just wanted you to know that you were right about him. About everything. And I'm sorry. I looked at this woman who had cheered while my marriage ended. Who had helped Trevor plan to steal from me. Who had smiled while I was humiliated. I felt nothing. No anger, no sympathy, nothing. I accept your apology, I said. Not for you but for me. Because I don't want to carry around anger anymore. But Vanessa, we're not going to be friends. We're not going to have coffee and laugh about this someday. You made your choices and now you live with them. I understand. I walked away and did not look back. That chapter was closed. Those people had no power over me anymore. Benjamin picked me up after the event. He could tell something had happened. I ran into Vanessa, I explained in the car. She apologized. How did that feel? Empty. She's just another person who made bad choices. I'm done wasting energy on people like that. He reached over and squeezed my hand. You're free of them now. All of them. He was right. I was free. 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. The district attorney's office contacted me. They were moving forward with criminal charges against Trevor for the fraud and document forgery. We'd like you to testify, the prosecutor told me. Your testimony would be very helpful to the case. I thought about it. Testifying meant seeing Trevor again. Reliving everything in front of a jury. But it also meant justice. Real justice. I'll do it, I said. The trial was scheduled for 3 months away. In the meantime, my life continued to get better. Benjamin asked me to move in with him. I know it's fast, he said. But Simone, I'm 50 years old. I know what I want. And I want a life with you. I said yes. Not because I needed him, but because I wanted him. There was a difference. The old Simone had needed Trevor. The new Simone did not need anyone. But she could choose to share her life with someone who deserved her. I sold the house Trevor and I had shared. Got an excellent price for it. Used the money to expand Thompson and Associates further. We opened a third office. Hired 10 more people. Patricia and I were featured in a business magazine as one of the fastest growing woman-owned companies in the state. The article talked about our success, our innovative approach to marketing, our impressive client list. The article also mentioned my divorce and how I had built the company from the ashes of that experience. I was honest in the interview about what happened, though I did not mention Trevor by name. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing, I was quoted as saying. If my marriage hadn't ended, I might never have found the courage to start this company. So in a way, I'm grateful for the pain. It made me who I am today. The article went viral. I started getting requests for speaking engagements. Companies wanted me to talk about resilience and entrepreneurship and rebuilding after loss. I said yes to some of them. Told my story on stages in front of hundreds of people. Inspired other women who had been through similar betrayals. I became something I never expected to be, a success story. Meanwhile, I heard through Angela that Trevor was barely getting by. His criminal trial was looming. He was stressed and afraid. His lawyer was telling him he would probably do time. I felt a small twinge of sympathy for him. But mostly I felt nothing. He had made his choices. Now he had to live with the consequences. The day before I was supposed to testify at his trial, Trevor called me one last time. Simone, please. I'm begging you. Don't testify. Tell them you don't want to press charges. Trevor, I'm not pressing charges. The status. This is out of my hands. Then refuse to testify. They can't make you. Actually, they can. I've been subpoenaed. Please. His voice broke. I'm going to prison. Do you understand that? I'm going to lose years of my life. You should have thought about that before you committed crimes. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve mercy. But Simone, I'm asking anyway. For the person I used to be before I made all these mistakes. I thought about that person. The man I had married. The man I had loved. He felt like someone from a different lifetime. That person is gone, Trevor. You killed him when you made all those choices. The man on the phone right now? I don't owe him anything. So that's it? You're just going to watch me go to prison? No. I'm going to testify truthfully about what you did. What happens after that is up to the jury and the judge. But I'm not going to lie for you. Not ever again. I hung up. The next day, I wore my best suit to the courthouse. Benjamin came with me for support. So did Patricia. I sat in the witness box and told the truth. All of it. The theft, the fraud, the planning, the lies. I showed the jury the emails, the bank statements, the notebook. Trevor sat at the defense table, his head down, unable to look at me. His lawyer tried to make me seem vindictive on cross-examination. But I stayed calm and factual. Mrs. Thompson, isn't it true that you're angry at my client for leaving you? No. I'm angry at your client for committing crimes against me. The leaving was actually a gift. It freed me to build a successful business and find real happiness. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found Trevor guilty on all counts. 3 counts of fraud, 2 counts of forgery, 1 count of theft. The judge sentenced him to 18 months in prison plus 5 years probation. He also had to pay full restitution to me, plus additional fines. I watched as they led Trevor away in handcuffs. He looked back at me once, his eyes full of regret and fear. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, nothing. He was just a man who had made terrible choices. He was paying for them now. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The case had gotten local media attention because of the dramatic details. Miss Thompson, how do you feel about the verdict? I feel that justice was served, I said simply. I hope my ex-husband uses his time in prison to reflect on his choices and become a better person. But that's not my concern anymore. I've moved on and built a good life. That's what I choose to focus on. Benjamin and I went to dinner that night to celebrate. Not celebrate Trevor going to prison, but celebrate that this chapter was finally, completely closed. You're free now, Benjamin said. Truly free. I've been free, I said. Since the day I walked out of that Christmas party and decided I was going to survive this. But yes, now it's official. We toasted to new beginnings. To justice. To the future. That night, lying in bed next to Benjamin in the home we shared, I thought about where I had been and where I was now. A year and a half ago, Trevor had tried to destroy me. He had humiliated me, stolen from me, lied about me, and tried to take everything I had worked for. Instead, I had built a multi-million-dollar company. I had found real love with a man who respected me. I had become a speaker and role model for other women. I had won in court twice. Trevor was in prison. His career was ruined. His reputation was destroyed. He had lost everything. And I had gained everything. The tables had turned completely. 6 months into Trevor's prison sentence, life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Thompson and Associates was busier than ever. Patricia and I had to turn down clients because we were at capacity. We were planning to open a 4th office and hire another 15 people. Benjamin and I were happy. Really happy. We talked about marriage but were in no rush. We both had been through enough to know that the right relationship did not need to be forced or rushed. I barely thought about Trevor anymore. He was part of my past, a chapter that was closed and gathering dust. Then Angela called me again. Simone, I'm sorry to bother you. I know you've moved on. But I thought you should know that Trevor is getting out early. Good behavior. He'll be released next month. Okay, I said. Thank you for letting me know. He's been writing letters to me from prison. He's changed, Simone. Really changed. He's been going to therapy, taking classes. He says he wants to make amends for what he did. That's good for him, I said neutrally. He wants to reach out to you when he gets out. To apologize properly. Angela, you can tell Trevor that I accept his apology, but I don't need to hear it in person. I've moved on. I hope he has too. I'll tell him. And Simone, thank you. For everything. For being the bigger person when you didn't have to be. After we hung up, I told Benjamin about the call. How do you feel about him getting out? He asked. I don't feel anything really. He's just a person who used to be in my life. I hope he's better for his own sake. But it doesn't affect me either way. And it was true. Trevor getting out of prison did not scare me or worry me or make me feel anything at all. He was irrelevant to my life now. Thompson and Associates celebrated its 2nd anniversary with a huge party. All our employees came, plus clients, plus friends and family. We rented out a beautiful venue and had catering and music and speeches. Patricia and I stood up together and talked about the journey. How we started with nothing but an idea and built something real. How proud we were of our team. How excited we were for the future. 2 years ago, I said to the crowd, I was at the lowest point of my life. I thought my world was ending. But it wasn't ending. It was transforming. And I learned that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the universe pushing you toward your real purpose. The crowd applauded. People came up afterwards to tell me how inspiring my story was. Several women pulled me aside to share their own stories of betrayal and rebuilding. You gave me hope, one woman told me, tears in her eyes. If you can come back from what happened to you, I can come back from my divorce too. You absolutely can, I told her. Not just come back but thrive. I promise you. 3 weeks later, Trevor got out of prison. I knew because Angela sent me a text. He's out. He's staying with us while he gets back on his feet. I'll make sure he doesn't contact you. Thank you, I texted back. But Trevor did try to contact me. An email first, which I deleted without reading. Then a letter sent to my office, which my assistant screened and threw away. Then he showed up at a public event where I was speaking. I was giving a talk at a women's business conference downtown. 200 women in the audience, talking about entrepreneurship and resilience. I was mid-speech when I saw him in the back of the room. Trevor. Thinner than I remembered, wearing clothes that did not fit quite right. He was standing against the wall watching me speak. I did not miss a beat. I finished my speech, took questions from the audience, and stayed on that stage like the professional I was. But my heart was pounding. After the speech, as I was leaving through the back exit to avoid the crowd, Trevor approached me. Simone, please, I just want to talk. No, Trevor. Please. 5 minutes. I need you to know how sorry I am. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man who had once been my husband, who I had loved and trusted, looked like a stranger. He had aged badly in the last 2 years. Prison had not been kind. You're sorry? I heard you. But Trevor, I don't need your apology. I don't need your explanation. I don't need anything from you. I'm doing well. Really well. And you being here trying to talk to me is just pulling me backward. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. You're right. You don't. But I forgive you anyway, Trevor. Not for you but for me. Because holding on to anger was taking up space in my life that I needed for better things. So you're forgiven. Now please leave me alone. I just want you to know that I've changed. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did and why I did it. I was insecure and stupid and I made terrible choices. But I'm not that person anymore. Good. I'm glad you've grown. But Trevor, we're not going to be friends. We're not going to have coffee and catch up. You need to build your new life and I've already built mine. Separately. Can I at least know that you're happy? That you're okay? I thought about my life. My successful company. My loving relationship with Benjamin. My financial security. My peace of mind. I'm more than okay, Trevor. I'm thriving. And I did it all without you. In fact, I did it because you left. So thank you, I guess, for setting me free. I walked away before he could respond. Benjamin was waiting in his car outside. You okay? He asked when I got in. I'm perfect, I said. And I meant it. Over the next few months, I heard updates about Trevor through the grapevine. He was working as a cashier at a grocery store. He was still living with his parents. He was trying to rebuild his life but struggling. Vanessa had gotten engaged to someone else, a wealthy lawyer who could give her the lifestyle she wanted. She was posting photos on social media of her new life, her new ring, her new everything. Trevor's parents were supportive but aging and tired. They could not take care of him forever. And me? I was being courted by a major publishing house to write a book about my journey. From betrayal to billions, they wanted to call it. Thompson and Associates was not quite worth billions, but we were heading that direction. You could inspire millions of women, my potential editor told me. Your story is powerful. I signed the book deal. Benjamin threw me a celebration party. My life kept getting better and better. One evening I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Miss Thompson? This is Detective Rodriguez with the police department. I'm calling about Trevor Carter. My stomach dropped. What about him? He listed you as a character reference for a job application. The employer wanted us to verify some information. Can you tell me about your relationship with Mr. Carter? He's my ex-husband. We divorced 2 years ago after he committed fraud and theft against me. He served time in prison for those crimes. That's really all I can tell you. I see. The employer is asking specifically whether you would trust Mr. Carter in a position of financial responsibility. I thought about my answer carefully. Detective, I can only speak to my experience. Trevor Carter stole nearly $90,000 from me and forged documents to hide it. I would not trust him with my finances. But people can change and I hope he has. That's something the employer will have to evaluate for themselves. Thank you, Miss Thompson. That's all I needed. After I hung up, I felt a twinge of something. Not guilt exactly, but awareness. My truthful answer had probably cost Trevor that job. But what was I supposed to do? What? I told Benjamin about the call. Did I do the wrong thing? I asked. You told the truth, he said. That's never wrong. Trevor's past is catching up to him and that's not your fault. He made those choices. He was right. Trevor had created this situation for himself. I was just living my life honestly. 2 months later, I was at a business dinner with Benjamin when I saw someone I recognized across the restaurant. Vanessa with her wealthy lawyer fiancé. She saw me too and for a moment our eyes met. She looked away quickly, uncomfortable. Good. She should be uncomfortable. I did not let seeing her ruin my evening. I had a delicious dinner, laughed with Benjamin and his business associates, and enjoyed myself thoroughly. As we were leaving, Vanessa approached me. Her fiancé was at the bar, not paying attention. Simone, I saw you on that business magazine cover, she said quietly. You look amazing. Your company is so successful. Thank you. I just wanted to say I think about what we did sometimes. To you. And I'm ashamed. You should be. I know Trevor tried to talk to you after he got out. He told me you forgave him. I did. For my own peace of mind. But that doesn't mean I forgot. Vanessa nodded. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I hope someday I can forgive myself. That's between you and your conscience, Vanessa. I'm done carrying around thoughts about you and Trevor. You're both just people I used to know. I walked away and this time I felt lighter. These encounters kept happening, kept reminding me of my past. But each time I felt less and less connected to it all. Trevor and Vanessa were not villains in my story anymore. They were just footnotes. Mistakes that had led me to something better. I had watched them fall, watched their perfect plan crumble, watched karma work its magic. And now I was done watching. I was done thinking about them at all. I had bigger things to focus on. Like the book I was writing. Like the company I was building. Like the life I was creating with Benjamin. The past was the past. And the future looked brighter than ever. Benjamin proposed to me on a Tuesday evening. No grand gestures, no elaborate plans. We were cooking dinner together in our kitchen when he just stopped, looked at me and said, "Marry me." What? I thought I had misheard. "Marry me, Simone. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to build a future together." He pulled a ring box from his pocket. Inside was a stunning diamond ring, elegant and classic. "I've been carrying this around for 2 weeks," he admitted, "waiting for the perfect moment. Then I realized every moment with you is perfect." I looked at this man who had been patient with me, who had celebrated my successes, who had supported me through the final stages of dealing with Trevor's legal issues, who had never once made me feel like I was too much or too independent or too successful. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." We celebrated with champagne and called our families. Patricia screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Finally," she said. "I've been waiting for this. When's the wedding?" "We haven't even talked about that yet," I laughed. "But we did talk about it. We decided on a spring wedding, small and intimate. Just close friends and family. Nothing like the big production my wedding to Trevor had been. I want it to be about us," I told Benjamin. "Not about impressing people or following tradition. Just us and the people we love." "Perfect," he agreed. Around this time, my book was being finalized. Rising from the Ashes, A Guide to Starting Over, would be published in 3 months. The publishers were excited about it. They thought it would be a bestseller. I had written it over 6 months, pouring my heart and experience into every page. It was not just about my divorce and rebuilding. It was about resilience in general, about how to transform pain into power. I had changed all the names in the book to protect privacy, but people who knew me would recognize the story. I had been honest about what Trevor did, about the betrayal and the theft and the humiliation. But I had also been honest about my own growth. About how I had wallowed in self-pity at first. How I had wanted revenge. How I had slowly transformed that into motivation to succeed. How revenge through success was so much more satisfying than any petty act of retaliation. "The best revenge," I wrote in the final chapter, "is living well. It's building a life so good that the people who hurt you become irrelevant. It's succeeding so thoroughly that your success speaks louder than any words ever could." Thompson and Associates celebrated record profits that quarter. Patricia and I decided it was time to expand internationally. We were in talks to open an office in London. "Can you believe this?" Patricia said one evening as we reviewed the numbers. 3 years ago you were going through the worst time of your life. Now look at us." "I know. It's surreal. Do you ever think about Trevor? Wonder how he's doing?" "Sometimes," I admitted, "but only in an abstract way. Like wondering about an old classmate you barely remember." "That's healthy," she said. "You've really moved on." I had. Completely. Then 2 months before my wedding, something happened that I did not expect. I was at a business conference about to give a keynote speech, when my assistant came running up to me. "Simone, there's someone here who says he needs to talk to you urgently. He says he's your ex-husband's lawyer." I was confused. Trevor doesn't have money for a lawyer. What's this about? The lawyer, a young man I did not recognize, approached me nervously. "Miss Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you right before your speech. But this is time sensitive. Your ex-husband has been arrested again." "For what?" "Fraud. He was working for a small company and apparently he stole money from them. Used forged documents to access accounts. It's almost identical to what he did to you." I felt cold. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because he's trying to use you as a character witness again. He told the police that you had forgiven him, that you thought he had changed. The prosecutor wants to know if that's true." "No," I said immediately. "I told Trevor I forgave him to give myself peace, not because I thought he had actually changed. I have no idea if he's changed or not. And I'm certainly not testifying on his behalf." The lawyer nodded. "That's what I thought. There's something else. He's claiming that the reason he stole again was because he couldn't get legitimate work. He's blaming you." "Me? How is it my fault?" "He says that because you were honest about his past when employers checked his references, he couldn't get a good job. He says you ruined his chances at rehabilitation." I felt anger rising in my chest. I told the truth. I didn't embellish or exaggerate. I just told the truth about what he did. If that ruined his opportunities, that's on him, not me. "I agree," the lawyer said. "I just wanted to warn you that he's trying to drag you into this case. There might be media attention. Let there be media attention. I have nothing to hide." The lawyer left and I gave my keynote speech with my mind racing. Even now, even after everything, Trevor was trying to make me responsible for his problems. That evening I talked to Benjamin about it. He's never going to take responsibility for his own actions, is he? I said. Some people never do, Benjamin said. But Simone, his problems are not your problems. You told the truth. That's all you ever have to do. The media did pick up the story. Entrepreneur's ex-husband arrested again for fraud, the headlines read. Some articles painted me as a vindictive ex-wife who had prevented Trevor from moving on. Others praised me for being honest even when it was difficult. I did one interview to set the record straight. I forgave my ex-husband for my own peace of mind, I told the reporter. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending someone didn't do wrong things. When employers asked me about Trevor's past, I told them the truth. He stole from me. He went to prison. Those are facts. I'm not responsible for how he chose to respond to the consequences of his own actions. The interview went viral. I received thousands of messages of support from people, especially women who had been through similar situations. Thank you for not letting him make you the villain, one woman wrote. So many of us are blamed for the consequences our abusers face. Thank you for standing strong. Trevor's second trial happened quickly. This time I did not testify because I was not involved. But the judge used his previous conviction and my statements from the first trial as evidence of a pattern of behavior. He was sentenced to 5 years. Much longer than the first time because he was a repeat offender. I felt nothing when I heard the news. No satisfaction, no guilt, nothing. Trevor had made his choices. Over and over again he had chosen to lie and steal and blame others. Now he was facing the consequences of all of it. How do you feel about this? My therapist asked me during our next session. I had been seeing her regularly since the divorce, working through my trust issues and rebuilding my sense of self. I feel free, I said. For a long time I was afraid that what Trevor did to me had permanently damaged me. That I would never trust again, never love again, never be whole again. But I'm whole. I'm happy. I'm successful. And what Trevor does or doesn't do has zero impact on my life. That's tremendous growth, Simone. I know. And I'm proud of it. My wedding to Benjamin was perfect. Small, intimate, filled with love and joy. Patricia was my maid of honor. Benjamin's teenage daughter from his first marriage was a bridesmaid. Our closest friends and family filled the small venue. As I walked down the aisle toward Benjamin, I thought about how different this felt from my first wedding. I had been so young when I married Trevor, so naive. I had thought love meant sacrifice and compromise and putting someone else first. Now I knew better. Love meant partnership. It meant two whole people choosing to build something together. It meant mutual respect and support and celebration of each other's success. Benjamin and I wrote our own vows. Mine were simple. I promised to build a life with you based on honesty and respect. I promised to celebrate your successes and support you through failures. I promised to be your partner in every sense of the word. And I promised to love you not because I need you, but because I choose you every single day. There was not a dry eye in the room. The reception was joyful. We danced and laughed and celebrated. My book had been released the week before and was already climbing the bestseller lists. Thompson & Associates had just signed 3 new major clients. Benjamin's company was expanding globally. We were successful, happy, and deeply in love. As Benjamin and I cut our wedding cake, Patricia leaned over and whispered, "This is what revenge looks like. Not anger or bitterness. Just pure, complete happiness." She was right. This was revenge. The ultimate revenge. Trevor had tried to destroy me and ended up destroying himself. Vanessa had chosen money over character and ended up with neither. They were both living with the consequences of their choices. And me? I was living my best life. I had built a company from nothing. I had written a book that was inspiring thousands of people. I had found true love with a man who treated me like a queen. I had won. Not by hurting them, but by succeeding so completely that they became irrelevant. That night, dancing with my new husband at our wedding reception, I felt something I had not felt since that terrible Christmas day 3 years ago. I felt complete peace. The past was the past. Trevor and Vanessa were footnotes in my story, minor characters who had appeared briefly and then exited. My story was about resilience and rebirth and success. It was about choosing myself, believing in myself, and building something beautiful from the ashes of betrayal. It was about proving that the best revenge is living well. And I was living so well. 1 year into my marriage with Benjamin, life had settled into something I had never thought possible after Trevor. Genuine contentment mixed with thrilling success. My book, Rising from the Ashes, A Guide to Starting Over, had spent 14 weeks on the bestseller list. I was being invited to speak at conferences around the world. Women's magazines wanted interviews. A major streaming service was interested in adapting my story into a documentary series. "You're a phenomenon," my publisher told me during one of our quarterly calls. "We want you to write a follow-up. Maybe something about maintaining success and healthy relationships." "Let me think about it," I said. But I was intrigued. Thompson and Associates had grown beyond anything Patricia and I had imagined. We now had offices in 5 cities including London. We had 75 employees. We had just been named one of the top marketing firms in the country by a major business publication. Patricia and I were splitting our time between locations, which was exhausting but exhilarating. We had hired excellent managers to handle day-to-day operations, but we still loved being involved in the creative work. "Remember when we were sketching ideas on napkins in my apartment?" Patricia said one afternoon as we reviewed designs for a new client campaign in our sleek London office. "That was only 4 years ago," I said. "Feels like a different lifetime." "You were a different person." "We both were." She was right. The woman I had been when Trevor handed me those divorce papers felt like a stranger. That woman had been broken, humiliated, lost. The woman I was now was none of those things. I had not heard anything about Trevor in over a year. He was in prison and would be for a while. Angela stopped reaching out after I got married. I think she finally understood that I had moved on completely. I heard through distant acquaintances that Vanessa had married her wealthy lawyer but was already having problems. Apparently he was controlling and jealous. I felt a brief moment of sympathy for her, then moved on. Her choices were her own. My life was full of good things now. Benjamin and I had bought a beautiful house together, bigger than the one I had shared with Trevor but filled with better memories. We talked about having children. At 36, I was not too old, and Benjamin wanted to have more kids after his first marriage. "I think you'd be an amazing mother," he told me one evening as we discussed it over dinner. "I think I would too," I said. "But only if I can still run my business. I'm not giving that up for anyone. I would never ask you to. We'll figure it out together. Nannies, flexible schedules, whatever we need." This was what a real partnership looked like. Not sacrifice and compromise that only went one direction, but 2 people figuring out solutions together. One evening, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I almost did not answer, but something made me pick up. "Miss Thompson? This is Detective Maria Santos. I'm with the Fraud Investigation Unit. I'm calling about Trevor Carter." My stomach dropped. "What now?" "I wanted to inform you that we've uncovered more of his financial crimes. It turns out he was stealing from multiple people before he was arrested again, not just his employer. We're building a case and we wanted to know if you'd be willing to be interviewed." "What kind of interview?" "Just to establish his pattern of behavior. Your case from 4 years ago helps show that this is how he operates. It would be helpful for the other victims to see that they're not alone." I thought about it. "Will this drag on? I'm trying to move forward with my life." "I understand. This would be a one-time interview, maybe an hour of your time. Then we'd leave you alone." "Okay. I'll do it." The interview happened 2 weeks later. I sat in a conference room and told my story again to 2 detectives. The theft, the fraud, the betrayal. It felt distant now, like I was telling someone else's story. "How many other victims are there?" I asked when we were done. "At least 6 that we know of," Detective Santos said. "Probably more. He was running a sophisticated operation before he got caught." 6 people. Trevor had hurt at least 6 more people besides me. People who trusted him. People who thought he had changed. "I hope you get him," I said. "I hope those people get their money back. We'll do our best." After the interview, I felt heavy. Not because I was being pulled back into Trevor's orbit, but because I was confronted with the reality of how much damage one person could do. How many lives he had disrupted because he could not stop lying and stealing. I went home to Benjamin and told him about it. 6 more people, I said. "At least." "You're not responsible for what he did to them," Benjamin reminded me. "I know. But I feel connected to them somehow. We're all members of the same terrible club." That night, I made a decision. I reached out to my publisher. "I want to write that follow-up book," I told her. "But I want it to be different. I want it to be a guide for people recovering from financial fraud and betrayal. Not just divorce, but any situation where someone you trusted stole from you." "That's brilliant," she said. "When can you start?" I started immediately. I interviewed some of Trevor's other victims with their permission. I talked to therapists and financial advisors and lawyers about how people could protect themselves and recover. The book took 8 months to write and it was cathartic. Turning my experience into something that could help others made it all feel meaningful. The pain had a purpose. From ashes to assets. Recovering from Financial Betrayal, was published 6 months after my second wedding anniversary with Benjamin. It did even better than my first book. I started a foundation to help victims of financial fraud. The Simone Thompson Foundation provided legal aid and financial counseling to people who could not afford it. We helped hundreds of people in the first year alone. This felt like the ultimate transformation. Not just surviving what Trevor did to me, but using it to help others. Taking something horrible and making it into something good. One afternoon, I got a call from the prosecutor's office. Trevor's additional cases were going to trial. "We wanted you to know that your interview helped tremendously," the prosecutor told me. "Your testimony from the original trial, plus this new information, helped us establish a clear pattern. We're confident we'll get convictions." "Good," I said. "Those people deserve justice. There's one more thing. Mr. Carter has asked to speak with you before the trial. He says he wants to apologize properly." "No," I said immediately. "Are you sure? He seems genuinely remorseful." "I'm sure. I've moved on. Whatever Trevor needs to say for his own conscience, he can say to a therapist or a priest or whoever. But not to me. I'm done being part of his story." "I understand. I'll let him know." After I hung up, I thought about that decision. Years ago, I might have felt guilty about refusing to give Trevor closure. But I did not owe him that. I did not owe him anything. His remorse was his to deal with. My peace was mine to protect. The foundation kept growing. Thompson and Associates kept thriving. My marriage was strong and happy. Benjamin and I were talking seriously about starting a family. But then, 3 weeks before Trevor's new trial was set to begin, something happened that I never expected. I was at my office when my assistant buzzed me. "Simone, there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent." Her name is Sophie Carter. Carter. Trevor's sister. I had not seen her since the divorce. "Send her in," I said, curious. Sophie walked in looking tired and stressed. She was younger than Trevor by 5 years, and I had always liked her. "Simone, I'm sorry to just show up like this," she said. "But I didn't know what else to do." "What's wrong?" "It's Trevor. He's in the hospital. He tried to kill himself." I felt my stomach drop. "What?" "3 days ago. Pills. He's physically okay now, but he's on suicide watch. He's completely broken down. He told the doctors he can't face another trial, can't face more prison time. He said he's destroyed too many lives and he wants to end his own." I sat down hard in my chair. This was the last thing I had expected. "I'm sorry, Sophie. That must be terrible for your family." "It is. And I know I have no right to ask you for anything. But he keeps asking for you. He says he needs to apologize to you face to face, that it's the only way he can start to forgive himself. The doctors think it might help him." I looked at Sophie and saw genuine desperation in her eyes. But I also knew what I needed to do. "Sophie, I'm sorry Trevor is struggling. I really am. But I can't be part of his healing process. I've worked too hard to build my own life and peace. If I go see him now, if I let him apologize and tell me his feelings, I'm letting him pull me back into his story. And I can't do that. But he might hurt himself again if—" "No," I said firmly. "Trevor's mental health is not my responsibility. It never was. He has doctors, therapists, your family. He has resources. What he doesn't have is the right to ask me to sacrifice my peace for his." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "I understand. I do. I just thought. I don't know what I thought. Tell Trevor that I hope he gets the help he needs. Tell him I genuinely hope he finds peace and becomes a better person. But also tell him that he needs to find that peace without me. I'm not his solution. I never was." Sophie nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm sorry I asked." "Don't be sorry. You're a good sister for trying. But this is something Trevor has to work through on his own." After Sophie left, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking. Part of me felt guilty. What if Trevor did hurt himself and I could have prevented it by just talking to him? But the bigger, stronger part of me knew I had made the right choice. I had spent years building boundaries, learning to protect my peace, understanding that I was not responsible for other people's choices or feelings. Trevor had made his choices. Over and over again for years. He had hurt me, hurt others, refused to take responsibility. His current suffering was the consequence of all those choices. I could not save him. Only he could do that. I called my therapist that evening and talked through my decision. She validated everything I was feeling. "You set a boundary," she said. "That's healthy. That's good. Trevor's recovery is his responsibility, not yours. What if something happens to him though? That's still not your responsibility, Simone. You can have compassion for his suffering without taking it on as your burden. Those are two different things. She was right. I knew she was right. I told Benjamin about it that night. He held me while I cried, not from sadness for Trevor, but from the emotional weight of it all. You did the right thing, he said. You protected yourself. That's what you're supposed to do. I know. But it's hard. Of course it's hard. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. Trevor survived his hospital stay. He did not attempt suicide again. His trial went forward and he was convicted on multiple counts of fraud. This time he got 15 years. I read about it in the newspaper. I felt sad that someone had made such terrible choices that they ended up throwing away their entire life. But I did not feel responsible. I did not feel guilty. I felt free. 6 months later, Benjamin and I found out we were expecting a baby. We were thrilled. Terrified but thrilled. We're going to be great parents, Benjamin said, his hand on my still flat stomach. We are, I agreed. My foundation was helping more people every month. Thompson and Associates was opening 2 more international offices. My books were being translated into multiple languages. I was living a life beyond anything I had imagined possible when Trevor handed me those divorce papers 5 years ago. The woman I had been on that terrible Christmas day would not recognize the woman I had become. And that was a good thing. I had been tested in ways I never wanted to be tested again. I had been broken and humiliated and betrayed. But I had survived. More than survived. I had thrived. The day my daughter was born, I held her in my arms and made her a promise. I will teach you to be strong, I whispered. I will teach you that your worth is not determined by anyone else. I will teach you that you can survive anything and come out stronger. And I will teach you that the best revenge is living well. Benjamin kissed my forehead. She has the best role model she could ask for. I looked at my daughter, at my husband, at the life I had built from the ashes of my old one. This was my happy ending. Not because a man saved me or because I got revenge on my enemies, but because I had saved myself. I had chosen to survive, to fight, to build something better. I had chosen to turn pain into purpose. I had chosen to become someone stronger and wiser and more successful than I ever could have been without the hardship. Trevor was in prison, facing the consequences of his choices. Vanessa was living her own complicated life. And I was here, holding my newborn daughter, surrounded by love and success and peace. The ultimate revenge was not watching them fall. The ultimate revenge was rising so high that I could not see them anymore when I looked down. The ultimate revenge was my happiness, my success, my beautiful life. And as I sat there in that hospital room, I realized something important. I had stopped thinking about revenge years ago. I had stopped thinking about Trevor and Vanessa and what they did to me. I had moved on so completely that they were not even part of my story anymore. This was my story now. Simone Thompson, entrepreneur, author, philanthropist, wife, mother. A woman who had faced the worst betrayal and turned it into her greatest triumph. A woman who had learned that the best revenge is not revenge at all. The best revenge is building a life so good, so full, so meaningful, that the people who tried to destroy you become nothing more than a footnote in your success story. And that is exactly what I had done.